You are listening to the CAD Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The CAD Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the CAD Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I'm Jim, your fun host, and with me, as always, is my partner.
It's Rocco, and you know what? As we're about to record this, Jim, I'm thinking to myself, why do we record this at 5 o'clock on a Friday when I'm just cooked?
Listen, you're the one who sets the schedule, dude. I just show up and ramble. Don't blame me.
Why not a Tuesday at 12 or something?
Well, you ain't doing it during lunchtime. Come on, man. I got to work with you on scheduling. How about Tuesday at 3 in the afternoon? It's a nice break of the day, Think that through. But I don't know why we do it this way.
See what I can do.
See if we can get it to work. All right. You know what'll cheer you up, Rocco? The engineering joke of the week. Okay, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
How can you tell if an engineer is an optimist?
How?
They actually believe their own estimates.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, an engineering estimate, anybody who believes that is not an optimist, they're insane. So, all right, let's get into this for today. All right, so today I want to hit on a topic that we've actually done before on the podcast, but it's one that I think it kind of it bears repeat visits as time moves forward, and I want to talk about 2D CAD work and whether it's dead on arrival or if it's thriving in the industry. And I think there's a distinct break between what the software developers and the resale partners are saying and what's actually happening out there in the real world. I also want to chat a little bit about the kind of the longer term prognosis of 2D CAD work and where we're likely to see it go over the next few years. Obviously, the CAD space, it's an area where, Rocco and I here at Zentech, we're kind of noted experts in this field. We do a ton of work helping people train and configure and implement and support their CAD systems and, their design build processes for the long term. So I think, in this environment, I think it gives kind of, Rocco and I kind of a unique, somewhat, I'll say impartial view of this topic that you're probably not going to be getting anywhere else. So Rocco, let's start with the basic question, right? Are our clients in the design space still using 2D CAD or have they all gone fully 3D?
No, tons of them are using 2D. And without throwing off your script, let's leave it at that and let the discussion flow. But the 2D is not dead. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. So that's a show, Rent. that's the show. We're done. We can go home now. Lots of folks still using the 2D CAD. So I'm gonna get a gin and tonic. I'm gonna kick my feet up and call it a night.
It is 5 o'clock.
It is 5 o'clock on a Friday, so I think that works anyway. I guess maybe not quite so fast, right? So the thing I want to hit on here, it's more than just kind of the yes or no of 2D CAD, but the why of it, right? Why hasn't 2D CAD died out in favor of BIM and 3D modeling the way that we've been told it was going to for the last, nearly 20 years? It's certainly not the lack of, hard technologies to support that shift, right? Modern tablets and phones and 2-in-1 devices and so on. They all certainly have the capacity to display and work with, large 3D models with no problem. Yet 2D CAD is still the master of the construction world. Now, don't get me wrong, right? Anything I say here today, right? 3D modeling and BIM, they are vital tools in the design arena that every architect, every engineer needs to become comfortable with. 3D provides a ton of, intelligence and data and control that you can't easily pull from 2D layouts. At the end of the day, though, right, what are you going to do with your 3D models, right? You're going to extract two-dimensional construction plans from them so that you can actually build the job. Look, to put this as simply as I can, there is a reason why 2D paper plans have been used for thousands of years. And that reason is that they work. They still work. Look, if I need to let a carpenter know, you need to build a wall from point A to point B, the fastest way to get him that information is in a 2D plan, right? The contractor can just look, get a measurement, and start banging nails. If they need info, right, on the construction type and the finish detail and this, the size of the studs, blah, 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 of that wall, a quick look at a numbered 2D wall section gives them everything that they need. The whole thing takes 30 seconds to get all the information they need off of a 2D plan. Literally 30 seconds. The idea that, a 3D model on a tablet, right, or anything else is ever going to match, that ease of use or speed, it's just not realistic, right? If you want that same information from a 3D model, what do? You have to log in, you have to open a file, you have to wait for it to load, then you have to zoom to the correct wall, then you have to know how to get the length out of the model, and you have to know how to turn on and off items that are in your way, right? And you have to set different views to get the construction info. That's a workable process if you need really, really extensive, detailed information. But that's a 10+ minute process to make that happen in 3D compared to 10 seconds on a 2D plan. The concept of, full 3D models for buildings, in a lot of ways, it's a pipe dream developed by folks who have never stood 6 stories up on a scaffold during a thunderstorm trying to get the building buttoned up before all your interior finishes are destroyed, right? It's just not realistic. Rocco, we work with a lot of construction folks who are kind of, actually beginning to bring their own CAD systems online, right? For the ability to kind of verify and extract 2D data quickly, right? Without involving, RFIs and so on. What systems are they focusing on and what kind of functionality, how's it working, I guess I'm trying to ask for most of them?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm seeing the most is AutoCAD and BricsCAD. And those of you who follow our podcast pretty often here, you hear us talk about BricsCAD often, and I don't want to go off into a software sales pitch here, but I mean it is a much more affordable tool than AutoCAD and the Autodesk solutions, and it's available as a perpetual or an annual license, and you could save quite a bit against the cost of AutoCAD. So definitely something to look at. But I'd say those two, AutoCAD and BricsCAD.
Okay, they're the big ones. Yep, that's kind of what I see as well. So, look, you get back to my point, right? The reality is, 3D, it's never going to work well in the construction world. There's just too much information to sort through in a BIM file for it to be cost or time effective to actually build from. 3D and BIM structures are great for the design world, and they are fantastic in pre-construction, right? Where you have the time to kind of go in and seek out and address conflicts right before you get out in the field. That's great, and they're a fantastic help in accurate estimates and making sure you're speccing the right components for your job. But once you get on site, though, right, those 3D models are not the way to work, right? And I don't care if you've got the most expensive mobile devices on the planet. 3D and BIM are information overload out on the construction site. That's not to say that those mobile devices aren't a huge benefit, but I think it works better for field people to use those devices to access traditional 2D CAD files for their building purposes. It's a really nice way to carry thousands of plans and details and specs with you in your pocket rather than, stacks of unwieldy giant rolls of plans and books of specs in your truck for each job, right? I mean, let's face it. Paper does not bear up to lousy weather conditions nearly as well as a tablet does. It's much easier to scroll through multiple sheets on a nice little 10 by 10 screen than trying to flip through 30 by 42 plan sets on top of your steering wheel or your pickup. And I think that software developers have pushed really hard on trying to convince construction people otherwise. Because they're 3D systems, let's face it, it makes them a lot more money, all right, for those than they get over the 2D. And that's really good for their stock price. But the reality is that full 3D hasn't, it doesn't, and it likely never will work to actually build things from. Okay, so I tell you what, let's get a break in here for today's sponsor, and when we get back, I want to talk about 2D CAD systems that work well for construction, and if they need to be fully disassociated from the 3D world. All right, so stand by, folks. We'll be back in a minute with more of the CAD Call podcast. All right, everybody. Today's episode of the CAD Call podcast is brought to you by ZenTech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. We're bringing ourselves to you. Aren't we nice? So we wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the things that we offer at ZenTech Consultants. In particular, we wanted to talk to you today about our offerings around developing and upgrading your CAD standards. We are here to help you guys with all of your CAD standard needs, from ongoing drafting and design support to block and library development, full CAD standards development, right, CAD version upgrades, really whatever it is that you guys need when it comes to developing, implementing, and tweaking your current CAD standards. Or like I said, if you don't have any yet, we can help you build them from scratch. So Rocco, why don't you tell all the good folks how they can reach out to us and start that conversation?
Yeah, there's a lot of information, people, on our website, zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Or you can give us a call, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
Ooh, nice. CAD standards from ZenTech Consultants. You're listening to the CAD Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CAD Call podcast. We're talking about 2D CAD today, and if it's still a functional process. And I think we made it clear in the first half that it is, especially for the construction world, right? But it's not just in the field that we're seeing 2D CAD still going strong. Even in the design world, there are a lot of projects that are still best, handled or addressed, or however you want to say it, using 2D drafting and design processes, right? And I'll repeat what I said at the top of the show. All design people need to be comfortable and able to work in BIM and 3D. You do, but not every job warrants the level of effort that it takes to build a model. And I don't think that it's likely that every job ever will. Let's set aside all the hyperbole that sales folks, guys like Rocco, throw around about, BIM and 3D. And look at the reality of this, right? The purpose of design, right? The whole function of design is so that you can show other people how to build what you've conceived in your brain. That's what plans are. On a complex new build, right? That can mean a whole lot of design information and extensive data and verifying interactions across a lot of systems. And BIM and 3D are perfect tools there on a bigger job, right? If what you're doing is putting up a warehouse using stud walls and sheet metal, all right, or if you're just installing a prefab storefront window, all you need are 2D layouts showing people where things are meant to go, right? And then you need to step back and let the professionals, right, size it out and build to those parameters, right? Look, if you're doing simple buildings or basic retrofit work, it is usually enough for a designer to show the rough opening, right, and slap on a note of, install per manufacturer's spec, and you move on. All right. And I have seen a lot of people, and I don't mean to belittle anybody, but particularly younger designers right out of school who kind of get this 3D BIM indoctrination. I've seen these poor youngsters get drawn down kind of what we'll call it the quote unquote fully realized model path of design that wastes time and money. And they wind up getting bit and yelled at by their bosses over this. Look, I can draw a 2D wall with openings and dimensions in under a minute, right? But modeling that wall in 3D can take a half hour or more, right? If the end output that you're going for here is going to be extracting a 2D construction plan from that model anyway. Why are you bothering? Why are we doing that in 3D, right? And look, like I said earlier, if you need that model, the full BIM model for structural or space or heat or power calculations and analysis and so on, that's a different thing, right? That's a full design and it's vital for that. But if you are just doing basic building processes and components, right, which is really very, very commonly all you need for things like, residential and light commercial and even, most retail, then any type of 3D can be overkill on your job and it can utterly destroy your design budget. So Rocco, on the design side, do you see most designers working strictly in 2D or strictly in 3D, or do you find that most of them are kind of working a hybrid system where they kind of pick which one is right depending on the job?
Yeah, the majority is still that hybrid. It's it's AutoCAD and Revit, right? But I don't. It's rare that I talk to on the design and talk to firms that are just purely Revit and they don't touch 2D. They don't touch AutoCAD anymore. I think it's kind of a misconception that only the big guys are doing it, because even the big guys are working in 2D. So. Yeah, it's still a blend.
Yep. I mean, I think if you want to look at it, like I said, in the Autodesk world, right? They rule the whole thing. Their AEC collections, where you get both AutoCAD and your verticals like Revit or Civil 3D all together, they still, I think it's like a 3-to-1 sell rate at above the standard verticals, right? So almost everybody who has Revit has the AEC collection. They're not just buying Revit because they need both 2D and 3D. And I think that answer that, I think that really kind of underlies our point today about 2D CAD. It's alive and it's well, and it's not going away anytime soon. You look, and here's the, I see this in the news all the time now and it kills me, right? This idea of working in, 3D, and we're going to build with VR goggles and AI assistants that's going to help us and put in augmented reality integrations with the real world and the virtual world. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's garbage. It's cool tech, right? And in a presentation and office-based approval kind of environment with the client, it may work fine someday. But in the real world of design, build for profit and efficiency, that is never going to happen. All right? Look, if you're in a construction world, let me just ask you this, right? How is OSHA going to feel about you walking the steel 30 stories up with a set of Apple Vision Pro goggles strapped to your face, showing you things that, may or may not be real? It might just be augmented reality. How do you think that's going to play? Look, 2D drawings, they are the simplest way to communicate effectively between a designer and a builder. And I haven't seen any type of technology, I don't care what it is, no technology that exists today even comes close to that efficiency. Sometimes, maybe even most times, simpler is better. And 3D is always going to be more complex than 2D. Right? If you think about it, right? Stop and think about this for a minute. 2D plans were developed as a shorthand for the 3D concept and the models that we used to have to build out of, wood and stone thousands of years ago. Those models took too much time and effort to build and change and modify for every project and every issue that would come up, right? And they were really tough to deliver to every person on a site, right? Just because we can create that model digitally now doesn't take away the limitations of a model. I don't see 3D models ever being effective for actually building from. So, right? So 2D is going to be here for a very, very long time. So Rocco, from a software standpoint, do you see the developers acknowledging 2D as a necessity, or some still pushing at that concept of, we're going to get to pure 3D? And which CAD systems do you see who are investing in still developing that 2D construction process and the 2D tools the most?
I guess it's like I was saying before. What I see is really AutoCAD and BricsCAD. And to your point with Autodesk and the AEC collection, if you notice, they have not done away with AutoCAD, and they're not going to. And a lot of people question, okay, how much are they really investing and building into AutoCAD? You look at a system like BricsCAD that I mentioned earlier. Brix develops BricsCAD. They continue to invest heavily into the development of the 2D and 3D features, but it almost seems like it's more heavily in the 2D area of CAD than in 3D. Not to say that BricsCAD doesn't have a powerful 3D solution, because they definitely have that in BricsCAD BIM. But a lot of the investments being made in advancing the core 2D product.
Yeah, and I see that too. A lot of that BricsCAD stuff is being heavily focused around making it easier for construction people, right, to be able to work these 2D CAD systems and get the data they need out of the digital files. So, yep, that's kind of where I am on that too. So I tell you what, folks, I'm going to throw out one last idea here in terms of why 2D CAD is never going to go away. Look, at the end of the day, whatever product you are putting out, right, you need to consider your end user. It doesn't matter if you're making chairs or if you're designing airports, right? The people who are going to use your product have to be able to use it effectively, right? Pointing tacks, or pointy tacks sticking up from your chair seat may look really cool and shiny, and maybe it'll even get you a design award. But not a lot of end users are going to want to sit in your chair, all right? Maybe Rocco, but he's a little freaky, so we don't mention it. But 3D modeling as a deliverable, it may sound really cool, and you may make great use of it for your own internal design needs. But if we try to push that at people who need to build, it is gonna fail miserably. All right? The simple truth is that construction people are not, nor should they be, design technology specialists, right? They need to focus their time and attention on the proper building processes and techniques, right? Not on learning how to, navigate a BIM model or extract data attributes. It's not their job, and it is never going to be their job. Asking them to do that is just as ridiculous as training your drafters, right, to learn how to, use a site grader or handle a crane. They do need to know what those things are and what they do, right? But you need fully trained experts to run those pieces of equipment. You don't ever want to sit a drafter designer behind the controls of one in the real world. And you never want your construction manager or your carpenter or your plumber muddling about in your BIM model. 2D CAD files are the simplest, fastest, cheapest, and most effective tool that humans have ever developed to build from. And I don't see anything simpler anywhere on our horizon. All right, so stop letting those software developers steer you guys away from 2D design, folks. It is important, and it is here today and to stay. And with that, I'm going to bounce us out of here, and we'll catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.